Welcome to Trifecta Collective, Finding the Root with Megan and Shannon, the podcast, where we dive deep into all things health and wellness to help you find health and healing inside and out for now and forever.
Hello and welcome to Trifecta Collective, Finding the Root with Megan and Shannon. I am Megan Abbott, owner and founder of the holistic health practice Trifecta Collective, and this is my co-host and head practitioner, Shannon Callery. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, so glad to be here.
Yeah, so we are back, both of us. We are both back here, and if you didn't hear my little intro to last week's episode, once again, I apologize. There was an episode that was recorded and there was an audio issue on the back end. And coincidentally enough, I had an experience yesterday that I would like to share on a podcast episode, which is probably like the universe's way of being like, we weren't ready to release that one, re-record it. So I am going to re-record that one and that will come out sometime in the near future. So apologize again, but we are back officially, both of us. Into the new year, and to kick off the new year, we really wanted to do like a really foundational episode of if you can't work with us, if you don't know where to start, here is where we recommend. And this is what we do with all of our clients. You know, these are places and things that we look at for every single person that we ever work with. We're also, this is going to be kind of a little bit of an expansion on a solo episode I did a while back about our pillars, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this. And we also just in case you don't know, we do have a do-it-yourself program, a DIY program called Life Force Ignite, where we walk through the foundations. And once again, this is the exact work we do with every single one of our clients who starts working with us. And it is a 6-week guided program. Now it is guided in 6 weeks. However, I do think for many people just starting out, the 6 weeks is a little bit aggressive. And I do talk about this within the program. And this can easily be expanded to 8, 12, 16 plus weeks, depending on where you are, how comfortable you feel, adding some of these things in and some of these changes and all that kind of stuff. This is also, if you're looking for a quote unquote January reset, or quote unquote detox. We don't love that word, but something like that. This is actually foundationally all good stuff that is really good for a lifestyle, just overall foundational. So, and it's also only $97. So it's less than $100. We will put the link in the comments. You can also go to our website. You get lifetime access to this. So just a heads up, and we'll probably mention this again at the end, but yeah, so we're going to talk about really the basics. So we'll start of all of our 5 pillars. Let's start with a real big one, nutrition.
Yeah. And just as let me say this too. So I apologize if you hear me cough on this podcast. I'm just getting over being sick and there's a little bit of a lingering cough going on. So sorry about that. But yeah, this diet is a great place to start. And this is really this episode, the previous episode, I think it's called Pillars of Health, and the DIY program. I just wanted to mention these are all great things to either go through, listen to, even if you're not having specific health issues, specific gut issues. These are just really solid changes that you can make for your life just to kind of get on a better track health-wise. So you don't necessarily have to have something going on to make the shift. But yes, diet. Diet is a huge, huge, huge thing. As you already know, we've said this multiple times, we don't love restrictive diets. So we try and stay away from that unless it's absolutely necessary. But really, when it comes to nutrition, the best things that you can do for your health are switching from, less processed foods to more whole foods. That's probably one of the biggest shifts. And then incorporating more protein in your diet. Those are 2 really big things. And kind of something else that follows along with that, slowing down when you're eating just is really going to help with digestion as a whole. And I think we did a whole podcast on digestion. So that would be a great one to listen to for that. but really focusing on just eating real foods and increasing your protein intake. Those are two great things that you could do for your body.
Yeah, and let's just talk about whole foods, because I see questions, especially in a lot of the groups that I'm in, like, what is a whole food? What is considered processed? And great question. And there's a scale. It's also not about being perfect. You don't have to eat 100% whole foods, but if you can do like 80-90% of generally what you eat as whole foods, great. And by whole foods, we basically mean anything that has essentially one ingredient, one, maybe two types of ingredients, minimally processed. Think about the outskirts of the grocery store: produce, apples, bananas, berries, spinach, broccoli, cauliflower, zucchini. Like all of these things are literally just one ingredient. It is that is the only ingredient, and it is not, it's not processed. It's just literally whole food. And then you kind of get into some more, most things that are packaged, there are some exceptions for sure, but most things that are packaged with many ingredients are going to be more processed. And there's a range for that. For me, for example, like I do like yogurt. I don't tolerate dairy well. So I do a dairy-free coconut-based yogurt. And there's, I think, like 3 or 4 ingredients in the one that I usually get, which for me, I'm okay with. It is acceptable. I know what all of those ingredients are. It's like coconut water, some probiotics, and I think something else. That's not a sweetener or anything. For me, that's fine. And so that's kind of like pick and choose. But, if things have like 1, maybe 2 ingredients, especially ingredients that you know what they are, that's generally going to be something that's less processed and, generally speaking, better for you, meaning that your body knows how to process this and it's not going to be filled with chemicals and preservatives and things that, real question mark, can our body actually digest a lot of these things? And do these things sit really well within our body? The answer for most people is no. And then if we look at the research long term, the answer is definitely no for a lot of these things.
Yeah. And something that goes with that too, as you were explaining this, we're taught to read the nutrition label, and really what we should be focusing on is the ingredients list. In some instances, yes, calories in, calories out, the breakdown of the actual nutrition status isn't important. I'll say like 10% in my mind, but the actual ingredients is what matters, because you want to know what's going in your body. You can have a food that says 100 calories and then there's 15 chemical ingredients listed in it, and you know that your body doesn't know how to process those things. So also learning to flip over if you're eating a lot of processed foods, flip it over, look at it. Read the actual ingredients and not the nutrition label. And that will give you a good insight on, is this okay for my body? Can my body process this? Because if you know what everything is on that label, that's a really solid indication that it's probably a decent food to be eating.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the other thing, like there is a spectrum here, and it's definitely, financially, we do have to consider this, and some whole foods can be very expensive. And, when people talk about, switching to more whole foods and eating healthier, they're like, oh, it's so expensive. Yes and no. If you really are focusing on whole foods, generally speaking, it's actually going to be less expensive. However, where it starts to get more expensive is when you find your favorite processed foods, quote unquote, healthier versions of these that are still processed, but maybe the ingredient list is better. Those are 100% always going to be more expensive. And so that is something to think about and consider. The other thing, like with meat, when we look at quality, yes, grass-fed, grass-finished, free-range, organic, all of these things, yes, are better. And also, we have to consider the financial side of things. And if you have endless income, go for it. It makes it real easy. For most of us, we do not fall into that category. And so pick and choose kind of your battles. If you're not familiar with like the Clean 15, Dirty Dozen, that's a really good way as far as like buying produce, or what should you buy organic if that's an option for you, and what maybe doesn't matter quite as much. Meat quality. Most of the chemicals, if it's not, grass-fed, grass-finished free range, is going to be held in the fat. So getting leaner cuts of meat that are more traditional are typically going to be a little bit.
Yeah. And that can be really tough because especially now, I feel like things are ramping up. People are becoming very aware of like the quality of meats, trying to shop from your local farmer, ask them questions. That is all great, but it can get very expensive to do that. And, like Megan said, the Dirty Dozen is a really great place to start when it comes to like veggies and what's most heavily sprayed with chemicals and pesticides and whatnot. But by and large, too, just to lessen the toxin load on your body, whether you're buying organic or non-organic, trying to like properly wash your veggies. I mean, I know there's like, you can go extreme with, I think Megan and I both have this, the ozone bubbler. That's a really good way to get pesticides off your food. But even just washing your fruits and veggies with a mixture of like baking soda, throwing some vinegar in there, something to try and break down what's on the skin is going to be helpful, even if you're buying organic or not.
Yeah, exactly. So those are just like a couple little tidbits here. The other thing when it comes to protein, just because this is also a pretty hot topic, we generally speaking do recommend animal protein. We are not big on vegetarian, pescatarian, vegan-based diets. We will support people if morally you are really, really tied to them. And it's hard. It takes a lot more effort to get in the protein intake that you need. And especially as women, and I know there's like another round of this going around right now of just the necessity of protein, especially, starting at age 30 and our muscle mass and bone density starts to decrease. And how do we start to minimize that? And how can we reverse that? Well, protein is a big piece of that. And look, like, animal-based protein, yes, you can get your protein intake from plant-based protein. But here's the thing that's really important to understand. Animal-based protein is super bioavailable nutrients, and there are more complete, meaning the amino acid spectrum and profile of these is complete with all of the amino acids versus most plant-based proteins. A lot of these things are not bioavailable, and the protein, the quality of the actual protein spectrum, the amino acid profile, tends to be more incomplete than complete. Not saying there aren't vegetarian and plant-based complete protein options, but they are fewer and far between versus the animal-based.
Yeah. And when we say bioavailable, that just means your body knows what to do with it, how to break it down easier, and how to actually get the nutrients out of it. It doesn't have to do as many conversions to try and get the nutrients that it, desires from whatever you're eating. It's, I've only seen, probably in all of my lifetime, I know 2 vegans who eat very, very well. I'm talking like grow their own food, make it from scratch, try really hard to get the protein in. But most people aren't doing that. And it's because we don't have the time to do that anymore. It's so much easier to meet your nutrition, your protein goals from eating animal protein. And honestly, we see that people just do better this way. Their blood work is in a better place. Their body is in a better place. Their mental health is in a better place. This is just what we've seen throughout our time working with clients and our own experience be the best thing for people's body. And like Megan said too, we're happy to support you if you are on that path. It just makes it slightly more difficult.
Yeah, and if you do tend to go that way, once again, particularly if it is a moral thing for you, I cannot recommend getting your blood work done at the very least every 6 months, if not every quarter, because there are real nutrient deficiencies that can pop up that can be very, very dangerous. And oftentimes it's not going to show up right away. It's going to take a few months, depending on the nutrients and depending on where you're getting your nutrients from and the food that you're eating. It can take, up to a year even for some of these things to pop up. So just being very mindful of that. And once again, it takes a little bit more work long term to really get all of the nutrients that you need. And you will likely have to supplement with certain nutrients at some point in time. And that does vary a little bit person to person. B vitamins, iron, certain cofactors of iron, things like that are big ones to look for in particular.
Yeah, supplementation would definitely be necessary. In more than like the average multivitamin, you'd probably need a little bit more than that. But
yeah, here's the other thing, and another big reason why we recommend, and we're so big on protein. And protein at every single meal. And starting your meals with that source of protein is because the protein stimulates stomach acid production. And not eating protein, you will not stimulate the same levels of stomach acid production. And stomach acid is so important. If you have any issues with acid reflux and heartburn, over 90% of people who have issues with that, it's because of lowered stomach acid production, not high stomach acid production. And stomach acid is one of our first lines of defense when it comes to gut health, because it helps to break down proteins. It helps to sterilize your food and kill any pathogens that are on there and shouldn't be in there. So it is a huge first line of defense, especially if you have any gut issues, if you have any history of like SIBO, H. pylori, candida, any fungal issues, any parasite type issues. Like the stomach acid is crucial. And simply by just having protein at every single meal and starting your meal when applicable, if you're having like a stew or a soup or something, you can't necessarily isolate that protein, but you can still have protein in there. And so starting your meal as best you can with that source of protein, that's going to help to stimulate stomach acid production. It's also going to help to regulate blood sugar, which is really, really important. And once again, I know there's counter information saying start with the veggies, then do the protein, then do the carbs. From our experience, look, there's research for both. From our experience, people tend to do better with the protein first, particularly with the stomach acid production. Usually blood sugar issues are not just blood sugar. Usually there's some other stuff going on here too. And starting with the protein is often going to be just like a really simple and easy way to help overall with the blood sugar and the stomach acid production and just overall gut.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are a vegan and you're listening to this, one supplement that I would highly recommend is probably digestive bitters. I know Urban Moonshine has a really good bitters, because what this is going to do is help your body stimulate stomach acid production. And if you're someone who's dealing with like heartburn or acid reflux, that is a pretty safe and gentle supplement to start with if you have those issues. Typically we use something a little bit stronger, like an HCl supplement, to help replace it. But the bitters is going to actually help your body stimulate the stomach acid production. So that is a really great supplement to take if you're struggling with those things.
Yeah, and we do have the baking soda test that on our website. So you can always go to our website. We'll put a link to that in the show notes. So you can always take that. Look, it's not perfect. However, it's a pretty decent indicator of like where your stomach acid levels are. And it's super easy. It takes 5 minutes. All you need is water and some baking soda, and that's it. So, and that's a good indication. And if you don't work within those 5 minutes, you might want something a little bit stronger. If you're like 4 or 5 minutes, those digestive bitters will often be enough as a starting point.
Yeah. And with the HCl too, just to mention this, so no one harms themselves. You can't take that without eating like an animal protein source. So just keep that in mind when we're talking about, vegans and whatnot. Bitters would be your best bet in that scenario, because HCl would probably be way, way, way too strong. So just wanted to mention that so no one tries to take it.
Yes, great point. So Other nutritional things, simple things that we'll recommend, the protein first and then the veggies and then anything. We don't typically recommend, especially for menstruating women, going too low carb because that can have some pretty negative impacts on overall health, but putting your carbohydrates, like the starchy carbohydrates, last. Couple reasons. One, we're getting in a lot of our essential nutrients. We're getting in the fiber and the protein and the digestive enzymes, are going here. And it's actually a really simple way to kind of manage your weight, because if you're eating and actually chewing your food and taking the time to really eat, if you go protein, veggies, and then carbs, you're probably not going to have a ton of space for your carbs, and you're going to be able to start to tune into your body a little bit more and start to really understand when you're full and when to stop eating, which is a really simple way to, not saying you'll necessarily lose weight or change your body shape, but it is a really good process and simple process without having to track or do anything. To just start listening to your body and tune in. When are you hungry? When are you full? Like, what does that really feel like and look like for you? And it's simple.
Yeah. And that's why when I mentioned in the beginning, like actually slowing down and checking in with yourself when you're eating, we were unable to do that, or it makes it very, very difficult when we're not putting any effort in to slow down. Like, a lot of us eat in the car or we eat while we're working. It makes it nearly impossible to actually tune into our hunger cues and notice when we're full, when we've had enough of whatever we're eating, unless we have that second to kind of calm down and tune in with our mind and connect. So that is a really big piece. And it doesn't have to be a long process. You can sit down before you start to eat your food, just be mindful, notice what's on your plate, maybe take a couple deep breaths and then eat, instead of, forcing your food down as quickly as you can. That's going to be a much easier way to just help your body slow down, and you're going to digest your food better too.
Yeah, like 5 deep breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth, making that exhale just the tiniest bit longer. That's going to get you automatically into more of a parasympathetic rest and digest state. And digestion starts in the brain. And so if we're frazzled, if we're in this like fight, flight, freeze, sympathetic state, your body's not going to have optimal digestion. So just taking those few big deep breaths, being mindful, being present with your food as much as you can. This is not about being perfect. We understand, especially, if you have small kids, if you do have a lot going on, sometimes it's hard, but doing the best you can with this, that's really what this is about. The other thing, like, chew your food, we digestion, brain, and then we think like and actually chewing your food, breaking down your food, not drinking a lot of liquids with your meals to just like go through and try and force things down. Chewing your food, the way we were taught is like 30 to 40 chews. Literally no one wants to count that. So, just chewing till your food's about the consistency of a smoothie, give or take, that's going to go a long way too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is really great if you can chew your food that much to make sure it's broken down. I mean, we even learned you're actually supposed to chew your smoothies just to make sure everything is broken down. What most people don't do that. So I really think like just these couple tips that we talked about, we're trying to slow down in general, is going to help you with better digestion, actually chewing your food. All of those things are great steps in the right direction.
Yeah. And then kind of just like a couple other things when it comes to nutrition, I would say many people do better with 3 larger meals. Many, not all. If you've got a lot of blood sugar issues, if you get really start to crash, if you get really hangry, if you go like 2 or 3 hours without eating, you've definitely got some blood sugar regulation issues going on, and more frequent meals, it can be very helpful. I think one of the reasons why we talk like 3 big meals is to limit snacking, and usually not the best choices for snacks is kind of where we're going with this. And if you're eating 3 very complete meals with protein, a veggie, and maybe a little bit of a starch for at least 1 or more of those meals, that goes a really long way. And that should give you a lot of really good nutrients. It should keep you full, keep you energized, things like that. So that's typically where we land. And, especially when I was a personal trainer, if someone needed to eat more frequently than that, instead of thinking of something as a snack, think of it as a small meal. Are you eating a small meal or a bigger meal? Versus like, are you having a meal or a snack? And kind of reframing it that way. So you're still having, a protein. Ideally with all of your snacks, that can go a really long way. When we think about cortisol dysregulation issues, a lot of people skip breakfast and just like have their coffee. Eating breakfast within about an hour of waking up, 30 to 60 minutes of waking up goes a really long way just for energy, for cortisol, for blood sugar regulation, mental and emotional health. It goes a really long way. And, if you're not hungry, I get it. And you got to push just a little bit. Don't, really force feed yourself, but, push it just a little bit. And that appetite will come after usually a couple weeks. We'll see that appetite really start to come back. And once again, like caffeine after you've had something in your belly, not before.
Yeah. Yeah, those are all really great tips too. And snacking isn't snacking, small meals, whatever you want to call it. It's not necessarily bad. Like if you're a person who maybe eats, you're working a 9-to-5 job, you have to eat lunch at noon, and then you're not getting home until like 7 or 8 and eating dinner. If that's the scenario, yeah, you should probably be incorporating something with a little bit of protein, a little bit of fat to hold you over, help stabilize your blood sugar. That would be a good time for that. But ideally, when things are balanced, I'll say this is when I see it the most. When people if you're having any issues, if you've dealt with it, when your blood sugar is balanced, you don't experience those crashes of low energy, the shakiness, the hangry, getting angry because you need food and whatnot. So you'll know if you're dealing with blood sugar regulation issues just from that. And just a really simple thing to do is just add in more protein, smaller meals a day until you find yourself getting more balanced out.
So I guess the only other part of nutrition that is coming up for me is just hydration. And we are going to do, just full disclosure, we're not going to go too deep into this because we are going to do a whole other episode just dedicated to hydration and mineral balancing. But, we need water. We need to be hydrated. There's a lot of weird and crazy things that can happen when we're dehydrated that we don't often think about. And so making sure you are drinking water, yes, plain water. By plain, I mean not sparkling, bubbly, flavored with all of the things, goes a really long way. Generally speaking, a good place to start, and this is not perfect by any means, but this can be a good starting point at least, is take your body weight in pounds, divide it by 2, and that's about how many ounces we usually recommend starting with. Certainly activity level and, the environment, time of the year. If you're in a very hot environment and it's, you're getting really sweaty and stuff like that, that is going to change things too. But it's a good starting point at least.
Yeah. And hydration is really one of those foundational things that we need for so many processes in the body, especially making sure we are going to the bathroom regularly. When people aren't getting enough water, it's very easy to see constipation happen, dry skin, so many things. And again, we're not going to go super into this right now, but the mineral piece is very, very important when it comes to hydration, because if we don't have those minerals, our body won't actually be getting hydrated. We're not going to hold on to that water and use it the way that we should. So I know that there's tons of like different mineral packets out there. That's a very popular way to make sure you're getting minerals in your water. A really easy way to make sure you're getting some minerals in is just taking a pinch of good quality sea salt and putting it in your water. If it tastes like salt water, you put too much in, it's going to alter the taste a little bit, but it shouldn't taste like you're drinking salt water. But that right there is a great way to just make sure you're getting those added minerals in and actually staying hydrated.
Exactly. And here's the thing, especially if you're going from more of a standard American diet, eating more processed foods, there's a lot of minerals added to a lot of those things, oftentimes in not great amounts or quality. And when we start to switch to more whole foods, and this is something, I just really struggled with, particularly my sodium levels for a while. They were they were crazy low. And I just had a really hard time getting them back to where they really needed to be. And it was really the switch to whole foods and really like eliminating, at that time, for me, it was 100% of whole foods I eliminated in my first elimination diet, thoughts on that. But, making sure that, especially in the transition to more whole food space, making sure you are getting, those minerals in there. And the pinch of sea salt is just so easy. Redmond sea salt is a good one. You can do like a good Himalayan sea salt. That's another good option. I'd say Redmond's is usually the one that I really like. So, it's personal preference, but yeah, it's super important.
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to make this comment because I have a feeling people might ask about it. So there's been a lot of stuff about going around about like the lead content in the salt and all the things. Something that's really important to remember is that we have organic heavy metals and then we have inorganic heavy metals. So when we're talking about organic heavy metals, in lead for this instance, we do have certain amounts of this that come naturally from the earth that our body knows how to process and use and detox just like naturally on its own. So yes, there is definitely going to be some lead, some other heavy metals and whatnot in these really good quality salts that are coming from the earth. That is not uncommon. And typically when we're using them in normal amounts, like putting a pinch in your water, maybe salting your food, that's not enough to actually harm the body in any way. So I just wanted to make that comment because I know that's a kind of a thing that's going around right now.
Yes. And that's a really important distinction, organic versus inorganic. And once again, like organic is just, our body can process it. It's naturally occurring. It should be there. It's very, very, very small amounts. And it's not, aluminum from aluminum foil that's been processed and it's put into our food, into medications, into supplements, into things that, then we're getting these inorganic metals that really our body can't do anything with except try and get it out. And then at some point it usually can't, which is where we end up with toxin overload issues and heavy metal issues.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is very important. And that kind of leads us into one of the next thing that's very important when we're trying to start out doing basic things. And that's going to be supporting your liver. The liver does so much for our body. It's such a huge vital organ that does a lot with processing toxins out. And, it also takes a big hit because we are so easily exposed to environmental toxins in our hygiene products, foods, air quality, water, so many things. So supporting the liver is like a vital part, especially if you're looking to start somewhere with maybe you have some basic GI issues going on, or even if you don't, we seriously all need liver support. This is just a great thing across the board for everyone to do. We love doing simple things like Epsom salt baths, castor oil packs. Those are two really easy things that you can do that are not supplements, which is also another reason why we love that.
Yeah. And so, the liver, a really big role of the liver is filtering out, getting things out that should not be in our body. And this is toxins, heavy metals, mold, environmental toxins. This is pathogens. This is viruses. This is excess hormones, excess sex hormones, excess cortisol. It helps to convert T4 to T3 for our thyroid, which, that's what we need for our body to be able to use thyroid hormones. It produces bile that's then stored in our gallbladder, and that's needed for fat digestion. It helps to regulate blood sugar. So, the liver does literally so much for us. And this is, we all, at the very base level, I would say we're all exposed to toxins unless you live in a very special
place. In a bubble.
In a bubble, and grow all of your own food and raise all of your own, animal products and all these things, and really intense, highly filtered water, all this stuff. So we're all exposed. And so, the other piece is we all undergo stressful periods of time. I don't know a single human being that at some point in their life does not go through a period of stress. And for most of us, it happens maybe a couple times a year at the least. And so just having that regular support goes such a long way. And just to add on a couple other things, dry brushing. Dry brushing is literally so easy. All you need is a dry brush, and you can get one for anywhere between like $2 to $10. Very, very accessible. Rebounding is another thing. You don't need anything for that. You can get a mini trampoline. You can also just jump up and down on the ground. So that's super easy. And then, if you have access to a sauna, that's another great way. But, pick one or two of these. And if you're looking for general maintenance, once or twice a week goes a really, really long way. If you are experiencing more significant health issues, bumping that up a little bit more can also go a really long way. Now, remember, if you do have chronic health issues, start slow. So start with like 2, maybe 3 times a week for very short durations with whatever you choose at very low levels, and then slowly work your way up. And that also goes a really long way.
Yeah. Starting slow, definitely. If you are someone who struggles with chronic health issues, you absolutely want to start slow, because we can have a buildup of toxins and other things going on in the liver. And when we give it some support, sometimes we can see things being released, and that can cause other detox reactions. So yeah, just be mindful with that. It's always better to start slow with everything. I know with the castor oil packs, I would say can be borderline more of an intense liver support. Usually they tell you to start by wearing them overnight. We never recommend that unless you've gone through an entire program with us and we know you are absolutely okay to do that. We typically don't recommend that. So if you're just starting out and you do have a castor oil pack, 15, 20 minutes is a decent place to start at. Same with the Epsom salt baths. Try and limit it to 15, 20 minutes. Don't make it super, super hot. It can cause you to detox more. We have seen people have detox reaction to Epsom salt baths. I know that sounds crazy. But yeah, just starting out really slow. And again, this is something that's good for everyone.
Yeah. And if you have or are experiencing any issues around histamine intolerance, histamine issues, mast cell issues, and we have plenty of other content around these things, I would probably not start with anything that's heat related. So sauna or an Epsom salt bath, that may not be the best path, just because you can get exacerbated symptoms utilizing those things. But any of the other ones you should generally be okay with. I have seen, some skin issues pop up with the dry brushing. You can just go a little bit lighter. That can be helpful in limiting some of those reactions. So just a little side note on that piece of thing. That piece of the histamine related things, just because I know we have a lot of people that deal with those kinds of issues. So important to understand here.
Yeah, definitely. And the dry brushing is great just because it's a very easy thing. I mean, it literally takes 3 minutes to do. Most people do it and then get in the shower, but yeah, very easy, quick thing that you can do. And, with liver support, like we mentioned, stress is also really hard on the liver, makes it hard to process. So one of the other things that is pretty basic that you've heard us talk about multiple times is adding in some type of mindfulness routine to address the nervous system. That is going to be a really big part of this too. And it also can help support your liver or keep it in a good place so you know how to manage stress better. There's tons of benefits to doing mindfulness work, and it can be a very basic, small thing to start with. Not everyone, especially if you're someone who has a lot of trauma, can just jump in and start doing meditations. It takes time to work up to that. So, just starting with, we always suggest journaling, getting out whatever you're feeling, maybe setting intentions for your day, doing a gratitude practice. Those are great places to start. Or just sitting down and taking a minute or two to check in with yourself, notice how you're feeling. Those are pretty basic things you can do to start with, a daily mindfulness routine.
Yeah. And if you are watching this, I have a little furry friend who has now joined us. This is Cusco, if you haven't seen my stories and me share about him yet. He's my partner's cat, who I absolutely love and adore. And he like almost never comes up at my desk, and now he's like all about hanging out with me all of a sudden. So I think it's super
so cute.
But yeah. So yeah, the mindfulness thing, like, 'cause if you're going to do one thing, like this is one of those things, like adding in protein and then some sort of daily mindfulness practice, like these two things alone go such a long way. And if you are brand new to this, like 2 to 5 minutes a day, the consistency piece is super important. If you don't like meditating, if you're just starting out, the meditation piece can be very challenging. A walking meditation for some can be easier. Breath work can be easier, especially if your mind bounces a lot, you have a lot of anxiety or ADD, ADHD type symptoms, trouble focusing, like the breath work is a really good one, or a walking meditation can be really good. Just like really simple things, somatic movements. And there's tons of videos on this of different like somatic practices. Like this is fundamental. And I'll say, we talk about root causes of health issues, toxin overload and parasites and all these things. Stress. The biggest one is stress. And the more you can learn how to manage stress, and if you do undergo stress, and once again, I don't know a human being that doesn't undergo stress, and the more we can help the body regulate and flow back into a parasympathetic, once again, like that rest, digest, like out of a fight, flight, freeze mode, just like, man, does that go such a long way for your overall health. And I don't see this talked about enough in the holistic health space of, if you don't know how to manage stress, if you can't manage stress, whether that like physically, mentally, and or emotionally, I mean, you can't heal. You're essentially zero chance of staying healed. I don't care what protocol, I don't care, how intensive the work is or not intensive, you're not going to be able to stay healed long term. And so this is fundamental, non-negotiable, crucial for every single person, just to find a way to be present, to be able to flow back into this parasympathetic state. And it's not about being relaxed and calm all the time. It's about being able to flow back into that rest and digest kind of state and not be stuck in this sympathetic fight, flight, freeze mode.
Yeah, this is super important to us, partially because we both went through tons of different protocols to heal physical imbalances in the body, and this piece was left out, and it was like the game changer piece that absolutely needed to be addressed in order for the other physical part to actually heal. So we're very, very big on this. It's so important. It's not talked about enough. In our opinion, it absolutely has to be incorporated when we're doing any type of healing from chronic issues in the body, or, even short-term issues. Like, this is just such a vital piece. And the sooner you start with it, the better it's going to be. I mean, this is another one of those things, like the liver support. You can start it at any time, and I guarantee it's going to be beneficial for your body, your mind, just like your overall lifespan, your daily routine. There's so many benefits from adding in a mindfulness practice.
Yeah. And once again, even if you are perfectly healthy, I mean, there are benefits, long-term health benefits for this. Cognitively, focus, concentration, recall, it goes a super long way for that. There's just so many benefits. So huge piece. And, kind of want to loop in some, lifestyle movement kind of stuff with this too. Things like getting outside, getting natural light in your eyes, this also goes a really long way. And, one of the big things that I talk about in Life Force Ignite, this DIY program, is habit stacking. And this is really crucial. If anytime you're adding anything new into your life, if you can stack habits, meaning add things on to existing practices, man, does this go a long way. Sitting outside for 5 minutes first thing in the morning when you get up, and look, I know it's winter currently for most people, and that can be real tough. And still a lot of health benefits, but sitting outside for 5 minutes and doing the breath work, like 2 birds, 1 stone. Put your castor oil pack on first thing when you wake up. Go sit outside for 5 minutes, do a meditation, eat your breakfast, go take a shower. Like look at how many routines you just got it right there without really much effort. So, really think about that. But, getting outside at any time, first thing in the morning, especially if you have sleep issues, energy issues, if you have cortisol issues, the natural light goes a really long way. And I'll even just say fresh air, just that has its own benefits, standing on the ground, grounding benefits, even just going outside and looking around, being present, identifying things that you hear and see and smell, that is also a mindfulness practice, and just learning how to be really present in the moment, which is very challenging for many of us. And so or going to take, a short walk outside first thing in the morning, do a walking meditation. So much benefit for all of these things.
Yeah, those are all really great tips. And I think we forget about that. You talked about just being outside and identifying the sounds that you hear or whatever you're seeing. It's a really good way to just pull your mind back in. And this is a great tactic to use if you're someone who experiences maybe anxiety attacks a lot, even when you're inside. A good way to pull yourself out of that is to do exactly that. Start identifying, I'm sitting in my office. I have my computer in front of me. This is what day it is. Just things that can pull you back in. I always forget about that. And I love that tool. So yeah, that is a really great one for being mindful. Getting outside in general, we're going to talk about mobility here too, but just short walks, 10, 15-minute walks. When we mention mobility or movement, it doesn't have to be going to a class or going to the gym every day. Just getting some sort of movement in. And if you can do it outside, that's a double benefit, because you're going to get some of that fresh air, mindfulness piece in with it, and some of the activity as well.
Yeah, exactly. And if you have sleep issues, getting outside and getting some natural light in your eyes goes such a long way, because it's going to retrain your body, and it's a natural circadian rhythm. And so that's really, really important, especially if you have, I have a long history of insomnia, so I know what sleep issues do. And we both know, and I know we've mentioned this before, of what a good night's sleep really does for us. And it's really a game changer. And getting natural light in your eyes. And once again, I know we're on shorter days right now, but even if it's in the middle of the day or if the sun's setting, whenever you get an opportunity, just 5 or 10 minutes goes such a long way. And yeah, with the movement piece, our bodies are meant to move. We weren't meant to sit in a chair at a desk for 8, 10, 12, 16 hours a day. We're meant to move. And short walks, once again, 5, 10, 15 minutes, that goes a really long way. And if you do have a lot of digestive issues, if you can take a short walk after you eat too, that's going to help improve digestion. It's going to keep you upright, can help just overall help things move from north to south, and goes a really long way. So once again, there's a lot of these habits that you can figure out which ones you want to start with, and then slowly build them up into what feels good and what feels right for you. But walking is so good for you. Yes. And it's so simple. And, once again, thinking long term, do you want to be able to walk, in your 60s, 70s, 80s plus? Well, keep it up. What you don't use, you lose. And if you want to keep walking, practice walking. And walking is just, is so, so, so good and so easily accessible for so many of us. And yeah, getting into the movement piece, I'd say by and large, if you are a stressed out person, no HIIT, no high intensity, no crazy cardio stuff. Yes, weights can be good. We've done other episodes too on movement, on strength training, weight loss, where we do deeper dives into strength training. Yes, strength training. Honestly, if you want to live a long time and have great mobility and access to different things, basic things like sitting and standing, sitting on a toilet, picking something up off the ground, reaching into a cabinet overhead, being able to twist and grab something. These are all really foundational things that, once again, practicing in body weight, bands, in a gym, dumbbells, kettlebells, barbells, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of ways to do this. So much benefit. And once again, especially as women, we do lose bone density, we do lose muscle mass faster than men. And the higher protein and basic strength training, even just once or twice a week, goes a really long way to.
Yeah. And it's so good for your mental health too. And I know it can be tough, but that's why we talk about starting out really small. You can even there's, if you YouTube like basic mobility movements for knees, hips, whatever it is, there's like short routines you can do while you're in your living room watching TV at night. Like just adding something in small to start getting some sort of movement in is really great. There's tons of YouTube videos for like short yoga videos that are like 5 to 10 minutes. There's plenty of ways that we can add this in without having it be like a very, very stressful thing. Like you don't need to be in the gym for 45 minutes to an hour. There's so many other options. So just picking something and starting really small, kind of like that habit stacking that we were just talking about, that's a really great way to implement it.
Yeah. I know Yoga with Adrienne is a big one that I really like. And she
love her
in so many videos. And she has a lot of like short, like simple, basic routines that can be really good. By the way, our YouTube channel started out as working out and basically like functional movement stuff. So I have hundreds of videos. I mean, and I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of videos on movement on there. So, some really basic ones that we'll often recommend starting with. I'm just thinking like from a full body perspective, shin boxes, thread the needle, 90-90, shoulder circles, YTW. These are all any of the toe stuff. You can search like toe lifts or toe. You can search toes. And so many videos will pop up there for you. But those are some really basic ones that are super good, very simple, very easily accessible. And these aren't just stretches, by the way. Mobility movement is active stretching that not only helps to open up the body, but it is actually a form of strengthening the body. So we're strengthening and opening up new movement patterns. You can use these as warm-ups for your actual workouts. You can just do these. If you have a lot of chronic pain issues, this is a big piece of how I fixed my chronic back and hip issues, was mobility work that then I translated into more strength training and getting back into that. But this is a huge part of what helped me heal from my chronic pain issues. So we're super about this. We talk about this once again with every single client in the DIY program. If I remember correctly, I do have mobility. And then even towards the end of the program, I have like some sample workouts too that are just body weight, really basic, that are, for the average person. Are they perfect for everyone? No, but they're a good starting point and good general outline to just get your body moving from like, once again, a full body perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, like starting small with, I can't remember the term that you use. I'm blanking. One side of like doing both sides of the body before you go into both. What is the term?
Unilateral training.
Yes. Unilateral training. That's also a really, like if you're really serious about it, especially like the balance piece and everything that we're talking about, it's really great to start with that. In that area. And then again, like walking is so beneficial for your body. And that's probably the absolute easiest thing that you can start with. But just these are some really basic things. All of them are good. Obviously, you don't have to incorporate them all in at one time, but picking a couple of these things it's going to be so great for your body.
Yeah, exactly. So that feels good. So we got nutrition, lifestyle, movement. We talked about nervous system regulation. So let's move on to supplements here. So the The supplement piece is hard because it really depends on the person. We'll go over some basic ones. We have a full script. We'll put a link down below to our full script, and we have like a liver supporting protocol in there. In the DIY program, at the very end, I do a bonus one just on supplements, pretty across the board. It's an hour long, if not a little bit more, at least an hour-long video that goes over supplements if you want to do that piece. Keep in mind, supplements are not required for everyone. And there are a couple, it's one in particular that we will recommend for pretty much everyone that I feel like we all take personally in different forms and variations. And I also want to touch on a couple that are pretty popular, especially right now, and talk about why we don't recommend them or precautions to take when doing these. So let's talk about multivitamins first.
Yeah. So multivitamin, again, like across the board, this is going to be pretty beneficial for everyone. A good place to start. Our food just doesn't contain the same nutrients that it used to. You'd have to eat like massive quantities of certain veggies and, meats, whatever, to actually reach the nutrient goals that our body needs. So we really love recommending a multivitamin. Sometimes if you're a very nutrient deficient person, we will recommend a prenatal vitamin to give you that extra boost. If you're someone who is truly iron deficient, did we do an episode on that? I think we did.
We haven't done a full episode on iron. We talked about it in the blood. Yeah, in the blood test.
Okay.
One of the blood test episodes.
Okay, so there's more to this. I won't go in too deep, but you need to look at other markers besides ferritin. There's much better markers for seeing if you're truly iron deficient. So when it comes to like a beef liver supplement, which is pretty popular, you absolutely have to check your iron levels first to see what they are. If you are, I will say anemic or iron deficient, beef liver is going to be a great option for you because you're getting not only the iron, but all the other nutrients, cofactors that you need to absorb the iron. And then just like is a really basic thing, a general multivitamin. We like or typically recommend one from Designs for Health. It's just called Twice Daily Multi. That's linked in our full script storefront. That's a really just basic general multivitamin that's great for most people, and it does not contain iron. That's one big thing that you want to look out for when getting a multivitamin. Again, we don't all need additional iron. That's something that needs to be looked into. But in general, getting a multivitamin without iron is going to be pretty important.
Most people do not need iron, especially iron by itself. So Twice Daily Multi from Designs for Health, super good one. If you are pretty nutrient deficient and we truly don't need that iron, a prenatal, we like Seeking Health prenatal essentials. Once again, it's only 2 capsules, which we're big fans of. We know a lot of these multivitamins, it's like 6 or 8 capsules a day, which is a lot. And you'll notice that both of those, neither one has iron in them. And once again, most people do not need iron. And if someone does need iron, they also usually need iron plus many other things to be able to absorb it, which is where like beef liver capsules is usually where we'll start, like an organ complex. You can also use spleen. Like there are different options, but beef liver capsules are usually a pretty good start. So yeah, a multivitamin generally for most people is going to be a really good idea. Just because it's winter, and once again, I'm seeing this go around a lot right now. Most people also don't need vitamin D. And I know that's super controversial, and everyone in the functional space is like, vitamin D. But so the ranges that we use for vitamin D, 25 OHD, just to clarify, because there are more than one vitamin D markers, which most people do not know about either. And be sure to go back and listen to our blood test part 2 episode where we do a better breakdown of vitamin D and really where we're from this. So 25 OHD, which is the standard vitamin D marker, our range is 25 to 45 or, 25 to 50. In that range is great. And you will see most functional practitioners 60 to 100 as the range, which is outrageous. If you look at the science and the studies behind this, absolutely not. You are going to deplete magnesium, zinc, you're going to put pressure on your kidneys. Like, there's a lot of things that can go wrong with really high levels of vitamin D. And if you're really curious, like where your vitamin D levels are, check your 25 OHD and your 125 dihydroxyvitamin D or calcitriol. Looking at both of those, because the second one, which is never tested, is the one that's actually absorbed into your body. We convert the 25 OHD to the 125 dihydroxyvitamin D, which is then absorbed into our cells. And those should be at a 1-to-1 ratio. And if they are not, you got some other issues going on. That, once again, listen to that other episode, that blood test part 2 episode.
Yeah. So many things with vitamin D. And it's also, you cannot find a multivitamin without vitamin D in it. So keep that in mind. Like, if you are someone who is already taking a multivitamin supplement, guarantee that there's vitamin D in it. So, and it's probably a decent, at least 1,000 milligrams or mcg, which I believe is more than 1,000 milligrams. But either way, we're not missing out on vitamin D. The best thing that you can do if you feel like you want to get some extra vitamin D in is get outside and get in the sun for, 10 to 15 minutes. That's plenty of time to absorb and actually get some usable vitamin D in your system. Again, if you're eating maybe some fortified processed foods, they also add vitamin D to that. A lot of the milk that I see on the shelf now, there's additional vitamin D in that. So we just need to be aware that you are probably getting some vitamin D in. You might not know it, but I guarantee you are.
Yeah. And if someone, if you are in the winter, if you live in a place where you get no sun and like literally never see the sun and it's so cold, cod liver oil is generally going to be a better option than, a D3, K2 kind of supplementation. Once again, it goes back to the iron of like, you're getting it, but you also need all the things to absorb it. And you want to make sure you're not depleting your nutrients. So those are big things. There's also one other piece that I forgot to mention in the multivitamin piece. One big thing, if you look at your multivitamin and if you get your multivitamin from a generic store, a drugstore, please pause this, go grab your bottle and come back and listen to this and double check, where is your B9, your folate coming from? If in parentheses you see folic acid, do not buy that again. You're wasting your money because the body cannot absorb folic acid. It is a foreign form of vitamin of B9 that our body cannot process and cannot use. And yes, B9 is a common nutrient deficiency. And if you are, that's like one of the first things that I would look at if someone sends me a multivitamin. Where's their folate coming from? Is it from folic acid? If so, it is a garbage supplement, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. And there's tons of nutrients that come from a synthetic form. And typically those are the ones that we're going to see at like the big box pharmacies, grocery stores, whatever. I mean, it's unfortunate, but I've even ran into a pharmacist before when looking for, this is like way back in the day, looking for multivitamins and probiotics. And I had someone say, like, you're probably not going to find the best quality stuff here. And then, of course, I went and got trained on all of it and really figured it out that they're just not selling the best quality stuff in those stores. So, but you, again, like a place like Fullscript, access to our storefront has all of the better quality supplements, the more absorbable forms that the body can use. So that right there is a great place to find them.
Yeah. And still, I mean, even within Fullscript, look at the ingredient list because there's a reason we don't recommend certain brands or certain products within a brand that we just don't like. And there's a lot that goes into that, but that's just a real simple and easy way to kind of look at this.
Yeah. And we have I think there's a section on there. Is it titled multivitamins where there's at least 4, I think, that are linked on there. So those 4 should be safe. We trust those ones.
Yeah. So that's good. An omega-3 I don't think is necessary for everyone. If you're getting pretty good quality fats in a variety, but that could be one that some people can benefit from. Magnesium glycinate is one that many people can benefit from. If you have a lot of anxiety, if you have a lot of sleep issues, not a bad supplement to maybe try and add in. If we're looking at, liver support, TEDCA is one of our favorites. On FullScript, you can get one from Body Bio. That's really good, very supportive of the liver. I don't think you need to be on that all the time, but if you want to do some extra liver support, that's fine. We also have a whole liver detox protocol on there available on FullScript. If you're interested, we do recommend, just because I've gotten this question a couple of times in the last week, do you recommend all 4? There's a reason why there are 4 on there. And yeah, they all have a purpose and a meaning, and they are all meant to be taken together. Not that you absolutely have to. If you're only going to pick 2, do the TEDCA and the binder. I believe I have the charcoal on there, an activated charcoal, if I remember correctly. Start with those, but there is a reason why there are 4 on there for sure.
Yeah, and charcoal is a very basic binder to start with. It does need to be taken on an empty stomach, which means, an hour, half hour before a meal, or 2 hours after a meal, and away from all other supplements. But yeah, that's a pretty gentle binder to start with on your own.
Yeah. And just a couple other things that I see a lot of people taking that generally we don't recommend, magnesium citrate. If you're having issues with bowel movements, the question is why. TEDCA can actually be really helpful in helping with that. Your liver has a lot to do with that. And some people, when we just put them on liver support, that just fixes the issue right off the bat.
Yeah.
Motility activator is another good one, or smooth move tea, which is really easily accessible. What are probiotics, prebiotics? Generally speaking, we do not recommend. You should not have to be on those all of the time. If someone is selling you a product and they're like, you have to be on this forever, real big red flag in question mark. Outside of a multivitamin, should everyone do this? There's a time and a place for pro and prebiotics. All day, every day is not the time and the place for that. So just keep that in mind. I'm trying to think. Those are the big ones that I'll often see people on.
Yeah, and this is not a big one, but I do want to mention this. If you don't have a gallbladder, there is a supplement, ox bile. You need to take that to replace the function of your gallbladder to digest fats properly. And that is another one that, again, if you don't have a gallbladder, that we would recommend taking for the rest of your life, because gallbladder, does a lot of things for our body, especially when it comes to digestion and so many other things. So yeah, if you don't have a gallbladder, that is a huge, huge thing, is making sure you're taking ox bile pretty much with every meal is going to be very important.
And I just thought of another one, zinc. Especially, once again, it is winter time. A lot of people are taking zinc. We do not recommend zinc by itself. If you do have a zinc deficiency, a copper deficiency, a zinc copper imbalance, we will recommend a supplement, whether that's oyster capsules or a zinc balance that has a 15-to-1 ratio between zinc and copper. But zinc and copper, the ratio of those 2 nutrients is super, super important. This is a very common imbalance. And if you are deficient in zinc and you are taking zinc straight up by itself, you can cause more issues, because once again, that zinc and copper ratio is super, super important. Now, if you do get sick and you need maybe 3 or 4 days, some zinc lozenges or a zinc supplement, you'll be fine. And I would not recommend more than 3 or 4 days at a time for most people to be on just straight up zinc. So it is not something we recommend. And I do see that quite a bit too.
Yeah, the zinc and the vitamin D, especially during cold and flu season, those are probably the 2 biggest things that we see. I just had another one in my head and then I lost it. I can't remember what it was, but in general, again, if you're looking to start somewhere, I would say the multivitamin is really great. And then doing some sort of liver support, whether that's the supplement protocol that we have or adding in the liver supporting activities. Those are probably one of the most important things, especially if you're looking for a reset to just jumpstart your body. those are going to be really great to help clear anything out and just make sure things are functioning the way that they should so your body can clear things out naturally.
Yeah, for sure. And then if you are needing or wanting to do some bigger work, any sort of healing work in the gut, any sort of hormone work, anything along those lines, immune system work, doing a liver support first, especially if you're going to do any sort of healing or hormone work, cannot recommend liver support, including the supplements, enough, because man, does that go a long way. And if your body's not prepped and ready for especially any healing, it can go horribly wrong. And you can feel awful and terrible and have a lot of detox reactions. And you're going to also just waste your time and nothing may happen, which is also pretty defeating to have that happen too. So kind of on both ends, it's really, really valuable. Once again, if you're not looking to do any sort of like that bigger kind of work, yeah, you can do the supplements or not. The lifestyle things are going to go really.
Yeah. The lifestyle piece is huge. There's plenty of people who are not struggling with chronic issues that, you just want to make these, again, like basic changes just to start making better lifestyle habits. And I cannot say it enough. All of these things that we talked about are fairly easy to do, things that, you don't need like massive amounts of additional support on, changes you can make on your own, and they will make a huge difference.
And once again, we have this program set up. If you feel like you need if you're like, listen to this and you're so overwhelmed and you're that paralyzed kind of feeling, the program it was designed to kind of walk you through this step by step. And once again, it's designed as 6 weeks. And I think it's a little aggressive as 6 weeks. Like, take your time with it, do one thing at a time, spend a month on just like each week is broken down week by week, spend a month on 1 week and then move on to week 2 and then, spend another month. Like, absolutely you can do it that way. And if you're just looking to do some of this on your own, look, and you have a really hard time incorporating new habits, like keeping these promises to yourself, if you make New Year's resolutions and then every year by February or March, it's completely out the window, start with one of these. Like, listen to this episode, pick one thing that feels tangible for you to actually start doing. And it doesn't matter what it is, to be honest. Just pick one thing and then do that for 3 to 6 weeks. And then once that feels more comfortable and pretty well incorporated into your normal routine, go back and listen and add one more thing. And then kind of do it that way. And once again, that habit stacking goes a really long way. I'll also say, and I talk about this in the episode that the audio did. We had an issue that I am re-recording and promise it will be released. But, being able to keep these promises to yourself, especially if you have a history of trauma, man, does that go a really long way for your nervous system, for just connection to yourself, your body, your intuition. Yeah, it goes a super long way. So don't be afraid to have this take some time. Go slow, go at your own pace. And if at any point in time you need help, we're here. We offer free consults. We have this DIY program. We'll put links below to everything. And we're always here for support.
Yes. Yeah. Always here to support you for, whatever you're dealing with, even if you're looking for clarity on what you're dealing with. That's what the consults are for. It's a half-hour call. We're able to dive in, especially if you have lab work. We love that. We can see what's going on, even more than just these symptoms that you're experiencing. But yeah, that's what those calls are for. So highly, highly recommend using them if you feel like you need it.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you so much for listening. Hopefully this was helpful and kind of kickstart your year off on the right foot if you are looking to do that. You can also start this at any time. It doesn't have to be at the beginning of the year. There's no better time than now to start incorporating one or more of any of these things. So thank you so much for joining. Be sure to check out the show notes for everything that we referenced here. We'll make sure we have links to everything. And once again, if you need help, we are always here. Reach out to us on social media, via email, booking a free consult. And thank you so much for listening. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe. If it resonates, a 5-star review. It means the world to us. It goes such a long way. And thank you so much for joining us and listening.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.